Well, outside Nigeria now, we turn attention to Brussels, where heads of the 27 member states of the European Union are set to meet for a two-day summit this week, during which they will discuss foreign policy issues on Friday, and that including the Bloc's China strategy. In his invitation letter to the leaders, the EU Council Chief Michel said the summit will be an opportunity to reconfirm the Bloc's united stance towards Beijing. This is coming amid the geopolitical tensions with China and Russia. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen had last week revealed EU's plans to enhance economic security, saying global integration and open economies have been a force for good. Recall that last week, the EU imposed sanctions on Chinese entities that are allegedly supporting Russia's military and industrial complex in its war of aggression against Ukraine, as part of an 11th sanctions package against Moscow. Prior to the announcement of the ban, Fu Kong, who is China's ambassador to the EU, said China has not committed to stopping companies from helping Russia, but he hoped through dialogue, misunderstandings could be resolved. Well, joining me now to speak on the key summit and expected resolutions from the summit is Global Affairs Analyst Collins Nweke. Thank you for joining us on The World Now. Amid the lingering conflict between Russia and Ukraine, the EU's leaders are set to meet in Brussels. Just how do you see their discussion go this time, especially as China takes focus?
The discussions that actually commenced today with, dinner scheduled with the Secretary General of NATO, where informal conversations on developing global issues are going to take place today, and then the main sitting continuing tomorrow, will, of course, touch on quite a number of issues. China is one of them. Now, in the letter from Charles Michel that you referenced, inviting his colleagues to the European Council meeting, you will see that as far as China is concerned, I mean, after highlighting other issues on the table, he actually struck a very, I would say, optimistic but cautious note, where he said that he is hoping that they are going to achieve a broad reconfirmation of their position on China. Now, the emphasis is on broad, and that is simply because as far as EU position on China is concerned, there are deep divergence amongst member states. While some actually are, supporters of a hardline position, others are telling them, take it easy, apply the brake, and let's go easy on China, because when we take the hard line, it is also going to affect, our various economies. So it is going to be, it's not going to be quite an easy, meeting, but ultimately, as they always do, Europe would come up with a resolution.
Indeed, and the world is looking forward to that resolution there. A whole lot is going on now. The war between Russia and Ukraine has persisted, and the expectation is that somehow peace would prevail in this circumstance. But that seems to be far away, because both sides seem to be forging ahead in, if you would say, defending themselves, as both parties have claimed. So how do we arrive at a peaceful resolution where the citizens benefit?
Well, ultimately, like I said earlier on, Europe always prevails. I mean, they converse, they argue, have varying positions depending on their own, national interest. Because one thing we need to get right here and indeed underline is the fact that at the heart of these discussions, at the heart of this relationship is national interest. While China is looking out for its international expansionist agenda, Europe is finding ways and means of curtailing China's economic growth. So you see, it is a matter of how you word your rhetorics and how the people are going to perceive it. But in the end, I believe that Europe has no matter how much they argue, as far as this relationship with China is concerned, I believe that ultimately they are going to settle for de-risking as opposed to decoupling. So they will continue to relate with China, find where they offer competitive advantage, but not take drastic measures that will hurt the relationship between both countries, because they need each other very seriously. And then on the other hand, the position of the United States of America is one that Europe, considering that they are their strongest, transatlantic partners, will weigh very much. You know that America is actually very much in the area of containment, that is containing the global ambition of China. So Europe is not going to abandon America. So ultimately, they are going to come to a middle ground, and that middle ground, and now talking about a possible resolution, is that they will continue to talk about dialogue, persuasions, as opposed to hard line. All other things are mere details.
Indeed, the European Commission President has consistently said that focus should be on de-risking with China rather than decoupling. But then also since 2019, the EU has referred to China as a systemic rival and economic competitor. So whichever way you look at it, China, still holds a great deal of influence, and different blocs are still trying to have China on their side, regardless of the affront, in quote now, that China seems to be putting up by supporting, allegedly now supporting Russia in its invasion of Ukraine. Mr. Nweke, what do you say about this?
Well, what I say about this is that, leaders, particularly in the Western Bloc of Europe, as opposed to the Eastern Bloc, do have very sharp contrast. So when you hear Emmanuel Macron, for instance, talking about strategic autonomy, he is actually speaking that language of, please, ladies and gentlemen, mellow down. Mellow down in terms of those who are listening to two things. One, pressure coming from, civil rights organizations, human rights organizations in Europe, who are actually pushing Europe to be, in their words, more proactive towards China, which is spelling out what they want and getting them to comply. And then, on the other hand, thinking of what America is going to be, and since they are their traditional allies, wanting to go the way of America. So Macron tries to mellow that down by, announcing this thing that he calls strategic autonomy, which is that Europe continue to converse there to differ from the United States, not markedly, but then being resolute and maintaining their economic resilience.
All right. Global Affairs Analyst Collins Nweke, thank you for talking to us on The World Now.
Always my pleasure. Thank you for having me.